What if I told you that staying poor isn't usually caused by a low salary? What if the biggest obstacle standing between you and financial freedom is something you repeat every single day? Millions of Americans wake up early, work hard, earn decent incomes, and yet, year after year, their financial life never changes. Not because they aren't intelligent, not because they aren't working hard enough, but because they've unknowingly built money habits that quietly destroy wealth. Today, we're exposing the 7 financial habits that keep millions of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, and more importantly, how to replace them with habits that quietly build wealth for decades. Stay until the end, because the final habit is the silent reason many high-income earners never become wealthy. Let's begin. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most financial problems don't begin with one big mistake. They begin with hundreds of tiny decisions. Buying without thinking, borrowing without planning, spending without purpose, month after month. Those small choices become habits, and habits become lifestyles. Eventually, people start believing they're simply unlucky. But the truth is very different. Money follows behavior. Change the behavior, and over time, you change your financial future. That's why, before learning how to build wealth, you must first stop destroying it. The first habit is one of the most expensive: spending money to impress people who rarely think about you. A luxury car, designer clothes, the newest smartphone, expensive vacations, shared online. None of these automatically create wealth. In fact, many people look rich while quietly becoming financially weaker. Wealthy people often make the opposite choice. Instead of buying status symbols, they buy income-producing assets, investments, businesses, index funds, dividend-paying companies. Because real wealth is rarely visible, it's growing quietly behind the scenes. Ask yourself, before every major purchase, will this investment increase my future freedom, or simply create a temporary impression? That one question can save thousands of dollars every single year. Millions of Americans, every paycheck already has a destination: rent, car payments, credit cards, streaming services, shopping, dining out. By the end of the month, nothing remains. Not because income is always too low, but because saving was never part of the system. Millionaires reverse the process. Before paying anyone else, they pay their future first. Automatic investing, automatic savings, automatic retirement contributions. Because whatever happens automatically usually happens consistently. Financial freedom doesn't begin when you earn more. It begins when you keep more of what you earn. So far, you've discovered the first 2 habits that quietly keep millions of Americans financially stuck: spending to impress others and living without paying your future first. But the next habits may be even more dangerous, because they don't just slow your wealth, they quietly steal years of financial progress. Let's continue.
Here's the third habit that quietly keeps millions of Americans financially behind: buying liabilities before assets. Every payday, most people ask, "What can I buy?" Successful investors ask something different: "What can I own?" There's a huge difference. A liability usually takes money out of your pocket. An asset has the potential to put money back into your pocket. The wealthiest Americans understand this principle. Before upgrading their lifestyle, they upgrade their portfolio, because one day that portfolio may become the very thing that pays for their lifestyle. Wealth isn't created by owning more expensive things. It's created by owning more productive assets. Imagine planting a single seed. The next day, nothing changes. The next month, still very little. But years later, that tiny seed becomes a giant tree. That's exactly how compound interest works. Unfortunately, most people quit too early. They expect massive results in a few months. When those results don't appear, they stop investing. Millionaires think differently. They understand that time is the greatest investor they'll ever have. Every dollar invested today may continue working for decades. Every year, compound growth builds upon itself. Money creates more money, and eventually, your investments begin growing faster than your contributions. That's when the real magic begins. Here's another mistake that quietly creates financial risk: relying on one paycheck. Ask yourself, if your job disappeared tomorrow, would your income disappear too? For many Americans, the answer is yes. That's why financially successful people build multiple income streams, not overnight, step by step. Dividend income, rental income, online businesses, freelancing, digital products, content creation, long-term investments. Each new income stream reduces dependence on a single employer, because true financial freedom begins when your money keeps arriving even when you're not actively working. Imagine two neighbors, same age, same education, same salary. One spends every raise, every bonus, every tax refund. The other invests most of that money. Fast forward 20 years. One still depends entirely on a paycheck. The other owns investments, generating income every single day. The difference was never income. It was behavior. Small financial habits repeated consistently over many years. That's how financial freedom is built. So far, you've uncovered 5 financial habits that quietly destroy wealth: spending to impress others, living paycheck to paycheck, buying liabilities before assets, ignoring compound growth, and depending on only one income. But the final 2 habits may be the most dangerous of them all, because they don't just cost money, they quietly steal time, opportunity, and decades of potential wealth. Let's keep going. Here's the final habit, and it may be the most expensive one: never investing in yourself. Think about it. A new skill can increase your income. Better communication can create better opportunities. Financial education can help you avoid costly mistakes. The stock market may generate strong returns, but sometimes the highest return comes from improving yourself. Every book, every course, every valuable skill has the potential to increase your lifetime earnings. Millionaires never stop learning, because they know the person who keeps growing usually keeps earning. Your greatest asset isn't your paycheck, it's your ability to create more. Here's something most people never realize: financial freedom begins long before money appears in your account. It begins inside your mind. Consumers ask, "What can I buy?" Investors ask, "What can this money become?" Consumers focus on today. Investors focus on the next 20 years. One mindset creates expenses, the other creates assets. That's why changing the way you think often changes everything else. Imagine improving just one financial habit this month, then another next month, and another the month after that. Those improvements may seem small, almost invisible, but years later, they become extraordinary, because fortunes are rarely built by one giant decision. They're built by thousands of ordinary decisions made consistently. Small habits, repeated for decades, create life-changing results. You've now discovered all 7 habits that quietly keep millions of Americans financially trapped. But knowing these habits is only the beginning, because knowledge without action changes nothing. In the final chapter, we'll bring everything together. You'll discover how replacing just a few daily financial habits can completely change your future. Let's finish strong. Take a moment and imagine your life 5 years from now. Not because you won the lottery, not because you suddenly became rich. Here's the final habit, but because, and it may be changed, the most expensive habits. Never investing, buying yourself to impress strangers can help you avoid paying yourself costly mistakes. You invested the stock market every month may generate. You learned strong new skills, but you created more the highest return source of income. One decision yourself led to every book, then every course, and every valuable skill. Your financial life the potential began changing to increase in ways you never imagined. That's how real wealth is created, not overnight, but over time. Let's review the 7 habits that quietly keep millions of Americans financially stuck. Crossmark spending to impress others. White heavy checkmark invest to impress your future self. Crossmark living paycheck to paycheck. White heavy checkmark pay yourself before paying anyone else. Crossmark buying liabilities before assets. White heavy checkmark build income producing assets first. Crossmark ignoring compound growth. White heavy checkmark give your money time to multiply. Crossmark depending on one paycheck. White heavy checkmark build multiple income streams. Crossmark waiting for the perfect time. White heavy checkmark start today and improve along the way. Crossmark never investing in yourself. White heavy checkmark become more valuable every single year. These aren't complicated secrets. They're simple habits repeated for years. That's how ordinary people create extraordinary wealth. Imagine meeting your future self 10, 20, or 30 years from today. What would they say? Would they thank you for starting now, for investing instead of waiting, for choosing long-term freedom instead of short-term comfort? Or would they ask why you believed there would always be more time? Remember this: every dollar you invest today is a gift to the person you'll become tomorrow. And one day, that future version of yourself will live with every decision you make. Money doesn't care where you started. It responds to your habits. The people who achieve financial freedom aren't always the highest earners. They're often the most consistent, the most patient, the most disciplined. You don't need perfect economy. You don't need perfect salary. And you don't need to become rich overnight. You simply need to replace bad money habits with better ones. Then allow time to do the rest. Because wealth isn't built by one big decision. It's built by thousands. If today's documentary changed the way you think about money, don't let it stop here. Choose one habit from today's video and change it starting today. Small actions create extraordinary futures. If you found value in this video, hit the like button, subscribe to Finance Growth, and join thousands of future wealth builders who are learning how to create real financial freedom, one smart decision at a time. Now tell me, which money habit are you changing first? Leave your answer in the comments below, because your financial future won't change someday. It begins with the decision you make today. Until next time, keep learning, keep investing, keep growing, and remember, financial freedom isn't a dream, it's a habit. See you in the next Finance Growth documentary.